Now this agent has just generated my daily Python lesson and sent it to my phone on my Telegram. It also is teaching me 2 different languages, Thai and French, and it sends those lessons to me at 2 different times throughout the day, 12 and 3 p.m. And you can set all this up in a matter of minutes. Okay, so this is my AI tutor slash mentor setup. So this is called Motion Tutor. And for me, what it basically does is it sends out time messages at multiple times throughout the day. Right now, I currently have it set up for, this is not currently labeled correctly, but it's 12, 3, and 6 p.m. So let's go ahead and change this real quick. So right now it has 2 main agents that it works with, the language tutor agent and the coding tutor agent. So right now, basically how this is powered is through something called Airtable. That's where it gets the information from to know and keep track of what it's teaching you. I'm about to show you the setup for that now. So what I have here is my Airtable base called Mentor AI. And in this base, I have 2 tables. So basically what Airtable is just a database. And what a database is, you could think of it as just something like an Excel spreadsheet with tables and columns. So tables and headers. So we'll see a basic example of this, right? Let's go to my language table here. So under language, it has basically the language option. And in this case, it's Thai. Then we have the words slash phrases that it's learning for this lesson. And then we have the category. So the dining vocabulary, shopping vocabulary, health vocabulary. So it's telling us the type of basically category of what we're learning. So use case, telling us a use case. Grammar practices, it's telling us grammar practices. And again, you can set this up for whatever you care about the most in terms of what you want to learn. So then we have grammar topic and then difficulty and then status. So you could do the same concept. What I did was 1 for language and 1 for tutoring because I want this. Those are my 2 main focuses right now in terms of what I need notifications and reminders for. So when we go to coding, it's the same concept. We have language, then we have basic concepts, we have continuation concepts of the concept basically, and then we have code snippets, your language slash concept vocabulary, advanced concepts, and then practice exercise. So this is gonna get sent to my phone every single day, but it's gonna get uploaded here every single day before it gets sent, so the AI can always keep track and not give us redundant information or redundant knowledge, and we'll always have a place to go back to and see all of our knowledge on an overall aspect. So if you want this template to get started and not have to build this out from scratch, make sure you guys join the community in the description. I'll also have a free version of this in the description as well in our free community, so you guys can get started and not have to basically spend all your time doing things that are already done. So we're gonna get into it now. So if you're in the community, go ahead and load up this template. All you have to do is make sure you have your Airtable connection set up, your OpenAI key connection set up, and your Telegram connection set up. If you haven't connected or set up any of these credentials yet, make sure you guys go watch my basic setting up your first AI agent tutorial. It's extremely simple to do. It'll only take you a matter of minutes to get a whole entire AI set up, as well as learn the fundamental concepts of how to set up your credentials. So once you have that done and you have your credentials set up, let's go ahead and go over what this workflow is actually doing. So first, what it's doing is getting triggered at different times. Right now, this is getting triggered at noon every single day. So once it's triggered, the AI agent is going to process this prompt. So in this case, this is my Thai lesson. This is say something different. So teach me next Thai lesson. So as we can see here, basically what we have is our system prompt down here, and I'll go over that in a second, telling the AI what it's doing, who it is, etc., as well as the prompt that is going into the agent. So the prompt that's going into the agent is not dynamic, which means it's not changing. It's the same thing in this case because it's a time message. And that prompt will be teach me my next Thai lesson. So with that being said, let's go ahead and go over this basic system prompt. I'm gonna just go over a little bit of it. You guys can go ahead and basically slow this part down and read out the whole prompt if you need to. I'll also provide this in a template as well. If you download the template, you'll have this. So this is basically my system prompt. All I say is you are an AI tutor designed to teach language learners using a structured approach outlined below. Your role is to guide learners through basic to advanced language concepts, ensuring they build a solid foundation in vocabulary, grammar, and real-life conversational skills. So I have basically that. It goes over some of the concepts that I need to learn, but one of the most important parts is down here, as you can see, output format. So I told it the example here, and I gave the output format in JSON, which I'll show you a better example of here. So with that, also, if you go to AI agent and you click require specific output format, it's going to make sure your output is exported or outputted in JSON format, which is good when you want to separate the data but have the same data every time. So let me give you an example of what that is. Let's go to structured output parser. We gave it an example of what the output we wanted to look like is. And as you can see, it says language learning, and then it says entries, right? So for each entry, for each entry, we have a language. So the language of focus, and we have word phrases, basically teaching what the phrases that we're learning is. We have the category, so everyday conversations, use case, greeting someone, grammar practices, basic greetings, grammar topic, nouns and articles, difficulty, easy. So this is just a very basic example of basically the structure of the data that we want outputted. So it knows exactly what to give us basically and have the core concept of that given back. So with that being said, we just basically added that JSON into this structured output parser. So now AI has a conceptual awareness of, okay, I know that I'm supposed to output in this format and it's supposed to look like this. So now that we have that done, what that does is it basically sends that output out. It sends that and it creates a record in your Airtable base. So this is why you need to, for one, make sure that you go to Airtable and you guys create this Airtable base. So you need to go ahead and create these two tables, language and coding, depending on what you guys are learning. But if you want to use these templates as they are, you have to set them up like this. And if you're in the community, you will have access to all of the Airtable templates as well. So again, you don't have to do none of this setup yourself. You just need to go ahead and basically link it to your account, and then everything is really ready to go. So all you need to do is basically, if you're creating this from scratch, you need to create your language section, your word phrases, your categories, use case, grammar practices, grammar topic, and difficulty. So that's for basically our language tutor. It needs to be able to place information from there. So as you can see, we told it the output of what we needed for each basically language that we're learning. And now all we're doing is we're going and creating that record in our Airtable. So with that, it's basically going ahead and mapping that output from the AI to each of the sections. So as we can see here, language, word/phrases, category, use case, grammar practices, grammar topic, difficulty. So that's all that's doing. It does that 3 separate times here because as you can see, we give it 3 separate examples, or 4 actually. So it does it 4 times because we give it 4 examples. So it outputs 4 basically language entries every time. So with that being said, I want that to basically, as we can see, these 4 were made in one iteration. So one time of this running is going to send me 4 different, or it's not going to send me 4 different ones. It's going to add basically 4 different entries into the language section because as you can see, we have the language, we have it's set up and sectionalized into 4 separate components. So for each component, we need to basically have its own row, its own entry, so we can make sure that we're organized and we can have this in continuation and it's scalable. So once that's done, basically it creates those 4 records, which is just basically keeping a track of what the AI has already taught us. And again, you see these 2 tools down here. We have search record and get record. This is basically allowing AI to search through your database, through your Airtable, and see what it has already taught you, what it has already basically provided for you. And so it knows what not to go over again. So that's what these 2 tools are doing, is basically giving it access to the database so it can pull information. And then when it's done, basically generating the lesson, it goes and creates these records. Once that's done, it takes that entire output. So basically all I did was drag every single one, which I'll show you guys in a second. Drag every single output from the output parser. So all the JSON output, all I did was take all that, give it to this AI model as basically the prompt, the user prompt, and then I gave this AI model the same system prompt that I gave the other one, basically telling it you are an AI tutor with that same base prompt. I just removed the output format section. So it doesn't need to be output format because again, we're humans, we need readable text. And I don't know why this is so small here, but it's okay. It's maybe a little bit difficult to read, but here's the last line. All I did was basically just take out the output format of that other system prompt on the other AI model, which we can see here. The only thing I did, I copied this whole thing except for this part going down, output format. Copied the whole thing over and pasted it in here as the system prompt. And all I did was, instead of the output format, I just put this text: teach in depth today's lesson, which you receive as input. So it's basically just going to take that whole entire structured output from the other AI. So what it's going to enhance and teach us basically more about each of those structured outputs that we got. So each of those entries will basically get more human readable language that looks more like a structured lesson instead of basically just code. The code is just so we have the same fundamental core concepts that are being taught to us every day, because we want to make sure that we're actually learning in the best way possible. But we still want to basically use that core structure and expand on top of it with the second AI node, which basically just enhances and teaches in depth today's lesson, which they receive as input. So basically, this AI goes ahead and basically creates the entire structured lesson in general, and then it takes that structured output, it adds it to its memory, which is our database, our Airtable tables and bases. So it basically just adds that information there, and then once that's done, it goes ahead and sends that compiled information, the whole total of the structured output, into another AI model, and that AI model just basically summarizes it, enhances it, and sends it back to the user in a human readable text way. So it's a lot easier, it's a lot better to understand, and it's more like you were getting it from a tutor or a teacher instead of an outputted code. So let's go ahead and run this and see what it's looking like, see an example of basically how it works. So right now, let's say it's 12 p.m. and we get another lesson. One thing I just did, I just removed that other memory node because we don't need that, because the actual memory is getting pulled from Airtable, so we're getting a quick error there. But let's click test workflow one more time. So as we can see, it goes through and it uses its brain. Then it goes in and searches Airtable. So it goes and looks at what we already have in there. Found those 4 records that we already have. And now it's going and it's giving us the next Thai lesson. So let's go ahead and see what our output is. Let's wait a second. Let's open up our Telegram and we should see our output here in just a sec. Just give it a second. Seems like we got an error here. Yeah, we had some basically issue. This is not the correct thing. We need to do the output. So one thing about it, this is a scheduled message. So right now we had an error basically because it's looking for the chat ID, which was set up for our agent. Basically, as we see here, we have a Telegram trigger and then the Telegram basically output. So this Telegram trigger before was passing the ID of the chat to the Telegram basically output. So it knew which chat to send the message to every time. Right now, because there's no trigger, like there's no chat that's being texted, it needs to know which chat to send it to. So if we go here on one of these, we should have our chat ID. So as we can see here, this is the correct chat ID that we need. So with that chat ID, now it knows which chat exactly to send that output message to. So now that we have that done, let's go ahead and run that one more time. So as we can see, we just got a response back here talking about today's It says today's lesson focuses on 4 key phases and concepts in Thai language. We'll explore each phase, delve into vocabulary and grammar relevant to each, and practice their usage. Let's begin. Ordering food. Chan yak sang an han. Excuse me if I'm butchering it. Like I said, I'm learning, but you see I'm putting effort towards it. So again, this is actual viable information. And so for me, what I plan to do with this is every day when these messages get sent, I open up my, let's say, language notebook. And if it's my coding lesson, I'll open up my coding notebook and I'll basically take notes, taking in this information and actually practicing. Knowledge is power, family. You guys can set this up in a matter of minutes. Now you don't need a tutor, a mentor. You can learn any concept that you want by following these practices. That's all you have to do. You can customize this to your liking, to whatever topic you want to learn. And now you have an accountability partner texting you every single day with updated lessons, updated information that's always changing and always evolving as you grow, that will allow you to basically learn faster than anybody else, and especially not have to pay nobody to teach you it. So again, if you guys want access to this template, if you have any questions, make sure you guys join the community. I also offer consultation calls if you guys want to automate your business, or if you have any sort of questions building out these workflows. Again, make sure you guys go ahead and check out the free template, at least if you don't have access to the community, and set up the language learner agent. Now let's go over a quick, basically SQL lesson and show you how that works and how it can be applied to coding in the same way. So as we can see before, it was giving us a Thai lesson. The only difference is now we have a different system prompt. So instead of it saying you are a language learner, it's basically the same concept, but swap for a coding assistant. Understand the core values and the core concepts of whatever you want to learn, and then incorporate that into your system prompt so you make sure you're learning effectively. So that's what I did with this coding. I asked basically my assistant before, I asked it, give me a structured outline in the best way to learn how to code or to learn a language in both coding languages and regular languages, and got those two separate outputs, and I turned those into system prompts. So as you can see, it got that. Again, I did the same concept with this and told it the output format, which is just a JSON output. And then again, we have a structured output parser here with the actual JSON format that we wanted to output as. So basically all you would need to do is, this is what is basically going to get pushed to here. So whatever table headers you have here, whatever information you want to go in here, you want to set up these, basically this JSON data to match that. So for example, let's go here, coding language. You see it got name and description. So for now, what I would do is for language, I'll put the name here, Python, and I'll also add the description here. I can also add another basically table here called description, and it will have those. I can match it exactly as much as I want it. Right now, it doesn't need to be that organized in my case, because in all honesty, the AI just needs context to this. I'm not really going to be dealing with the data in basically Airtable like that. I'm going to be dealing with it more basically the results of what the AI has access to, so I wouldn't need to look at it that much. But again, you can set it up as detailed as you want, as matching as you want right now. Like I said, I have, for example, the name. I have, for example, the name and the description going into one field under language. And then I have basically basic concept. I have the concept and the explanation going into the basic concepts field. So again, I have basically two going into one. You can have one going into one. You can have 3, 4, 5 going into one. Whatever the case is, you want one for each basically output that you get. So if you want basically a basic concept syntax table, a header, and then you want a concept header, and then you want an explanation header. So it's like, it's up to you if that's what you want. For me, like I said, because AI is getting context to this, not me, I can combine them. I don't need to be as organized and have them basically set up with each of these fields being their own header of the table. I don't need to do that. If you want to do that because you're going to be dealing with AI, you need to be more, you need to have more access and organization to the database and be able to query better. It means like search it and look for data better. Then yes, I do recommend you guys setting up and basically matching out your output to your table data, so you can make sure that you're getting as much data placed organized as possible. So with that being said, it's sending that structured output and is basically updating that into one Airtable record. So it's just going to update that into one Airtable record with, again, combine things like I said before, the name and the description into one field. So all I did was drag those into here. So like we go and look at this example, you'll see what I mean by that. So as you can see, these are just all things that are dragged and dropped over here, as you can see. So once you do the output one time and you test this workflow, you'll be able to see the output data from, let's say, the AI after it goes through the output parser. So you'll be able to see what you want to go to which category. So it'll be the same concept, and that's why I was saying here, basically I go and I put all that data. So all I did was drag each one of these things from my Airtable. I dragged everything from the Airtable and I put it in here. So that way the AI has access to all the data that was outputted, and then it summarizes it and optimizes it for a human reader to read, and then sends that back to Telegram. So that's all that's happening. Let's go ahead and test this workflow as well. So let's click test. So it's thinking right now. It's checking the database, seeing what's available. It's trying that structured output parser. It's having some errors and difficulties, but it's going to keep retrying till it gets it. Okay, so it outputted that structured output, created the Airtable record, and then it basically just sent that output to our Telegram. Go ahead and check what that message is, and let's look. So boom, it just sent us an SQL language, which is a coding language for databases lesson. So as we can see, to find all the employees in marketing department and list their names and email addresses, you would use the following query. So this is a continuation from the previous lesson that I had, by the way. So basically, as you can see here, this was telling me how to search and select certain things. And now it gave me a practice exercise on how to do certain things. And now with that, it gave me a continuation in my next lesson for basically SQL teaching me how to do the next thing. That's why it's important to keep track of your data and input the data, so the AI is actually teaching you step by step by step and not going over the same things over and over again. So this is one of the best setups you can have for learning anything online. Set yourself up an agent. Go ahead and join the community so you guys can save a whole bunch of time instead of having to build these out by scratch, and just basically be able to plug and play and learn exponentially faster than other people. So again, if you want the template, go ahead and join the community. If you want the free version of just the language model and set up the Airtable, go ahead and join the free community. Again, everything is available to you. Start automating before it's too late.